If you're looking for a martial art to become dangerous for the streets and for the sheets, this video is for you. We are going to be making a martial arts tier list based on what is the best for self-defense. They're going to be judged for one by their style, meaning how practical they are by themselves, and for one how available they are, meaning how many gyms you have access to, how many training partners you can find, and yada yada. Let's get to it. Okay, for the first entry, we don't even have a martial art, we actually have powerlifting, which I believe kind of stands synonymous for just lifting weights in general here. So here's the thing, it's not a martial art in itself, meaning it's not directly going to prepare you for fighting, but it's gonna get you generally physically prepared. And I believe that if you are stronger than the average person, your odds of beating them off in a fight are going to be greatly increased. So I think it's fair to put powerlifting in the alright category. It's not gonna directly make you better at fighting, but it's good enough to kind of just keep you over water, you know? Anyways, next entry, we have the first that could be considered a martial art, even though it doesn't really consist of like hand-to-hand fighting. It's Filipino martial arts, also known as Escrima, where they do flashy moves carrying two swords or daggers, however you want to call them, and doing these like cool-looking action Aikido type of things. They look cool, they're really fun to do. I actually tried them myself with a good friend of mine some time ago. But when it comes to preparing you for the streets, yeah, they're not really going to just think of it practically. When do you ever find yourself carrying one sword alongside you? Another thing, whenever do you find yourself carrying two swords alongside you? It's just not really gonna make that much sense, you know. But I'm not gonna put it into the cringe shit category because it's kind of cool and it doesn't really pretend to be a self-defense system, you know. So I'm just gonna put it into the kind of gay category. Like, it's fun to do, but it's not really gonna do shit. Next up, we have the big brother of the Filipino martial arts, which is Ninjutsu, which essentially is just sword fighting. It has the same problems as the Filipino martial art, but kind of to a lesser extent, because the odds of you carrying one sword are vastly superior to carrying two swords, I suppose. And I also feel like, considering it's only sword fighting with one sword, it's kind of more applicable to a bigger, to a more variable kind of sword. Like, if you do the Filipino martial arts, for instance, you're kind of limited to like small to medium-sized daggers. And if you like do ninjutsu, you could use a samurai sword. You can use like a Zweihänder. You can also use just a standard European sword. So I suppose it's going to be superior from a practicality point of view to the Filipino martial arts. So yeah, it gets to the current top of the kinda gay category. Next up, we actually have the first legit martial art, which is kickboxing.
Okay, but I must warn you, I happen to be a world championship kickboxer.
Kickboxing, bro, it's okay, so it's gonna be good immediately. It's a good martial art. It's gonna get you prepared to fight. The problem that I have with kickboxing, for one, is that it doesn't really involve any grappling. Meaning, if someone is just barely knows how to wrestle or just barely knows some jiu-jitsu, you're kind of screwed because they can just catch your legs and take you down immediately. However, considering that it's still legit, there's kickboxing gyms everywhere. It's one of the, like, besides boxing, it's probably the widest spread combat sports, at least in the West and in East Asia, I think. I suppose it's gonna be a good start. I mean, intensity is gonna be right up. You're gonna find lots of training partners, and it's gonna get you somewhere. If you were to like bet on people during street fights, and one is untrained and one did kickboxing for like a year or two, I would bet my house on the kickboxing guy. Okay, he takes the edge, but I believe it's not going to be the most optimized solution, if that makes sense. Next up, we have the only martial art that actually demands you to pay them interest rates. That is Krav Maga, the martial art that was promised to the people 4,000 years ago. Bro, Krav Maga immediately gonna go into cringe shit category. Why? The techniques in themselves aren't necessarily flawed. You know, they have shit like eye pokes, groin strikes, the 1,000 years of pain. They're not necessarily bad techniques, but per se, the problem kind of more so lies that when are you gonna find a training partner who wants to practice them with intensity? Like, who's gonna willingly let you poke their eye? It's just not gonna happen, you know? So you can't really train these under intensity, meaning that it's gonna be hard to actually apply them in a real fight situation, which is quite intense. But the problem that I actually have with Krav Maga is it really thinks, it's super arrogant. It thinks that it's the ultimate self-defense system, while the practitioners are gonna get smoked by any guy who did kickboxing, Jiu Jitsu, MMA, even fucking Ninjutsu, as long as they carry a kendo sword alongside them. But they still, they kind of think they have this superior system, so fuck these guys, they're gonna go into cringe shit. Fucking usury. Next up we have catch wrestling, which is actually quite an interesting entry. I would say, stylistically speaking, will probably go somewhere up here. But considering that there's just no catch wrestling gyms, I mean, when was the last time you saw a catch wrestling match? Probably never happened. When was the last time you spoke to a catch wrestler? Probably never happened either. When was the last time you drove by a catch wrestling gym and thought to yourself, I might have it doesn't happen because these gyms just don't exist. There might be like a few niche gyms in the UK or the United States, but outside of that, you're not really going to be able to find the training somewhere. And the problem is you're also not going to be able to find lots of training partners because nobody trains catch wrestling. However, stylistically, it's really good. So if you have like a fully established catch wrestling gym next to your home, by all means, bro, it's going to be a fantastic entry. But considering the low availability, it has to go below kickboxing. It's a good art. The problem is there's just way more practical grappling arts pretty much found everywhere on the world. Next up we have Brazilian Jiu Jitsu, marketed as the best ultimate self-defense system by the Gracies, who are red belts in marketing. Arguably better in marketing than fighting, as proven by Kazushi Sakuraba, but that's a topic for another video. Anyways, Brazilian Jiu Jitsu goes into amazing. Now, why do I put it into amazing and not godlike, even though it is pretty much the only legit martial art that is rightfully presented as a self-defense system? It's not that the Jiu-Jitsu has any issues speaking technique-wise or speaking stylistically. The problem with Jiu-Jitsu more so is that lots of the practitioners are just pussies. They don't really train with intensity, and lots of times they just start out sparring off of their knees, which is just never gonna happen, okay? So whenever I'm gonna challenge a man to a fight or you're gonna get assaulted, but then both of you just demand that you're gonna start off from your knees, that doesn't happen. Meaning the carryover is not really going to be one-to-one. The reason for that is that Jiu-Jitsu has been kind of watered down to be more applicable to the general masses who are not gritty, tough fighters, but just average Joes that may want to get in shape, which is completely fine, but that obviously kind of dumps it down. So stylistically speaking, it is pretty good. The issue is kind of more so within the culture of most gyms, which leaves lots of Jiu-Jitsu practitioners kind of unable to keep up with intensity, I would say. But considering that it's stylistically still a 10 out of 10, and that there's such high availability, I believe it rightfully gets to the top of the amazing category. If the training would inherently be a lot more intense, I would go into godlike, but it's just not, so it has to go into amazing. Next up we have Japanese Jiu-Jitsu, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu's older sibling that has been neglected. So the problem with Japanese Jiu-Jitsu, it kind of has the same problems as Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, just cranked up to the extreme. So on paper, it would be a lot better than Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu for self-defense because it also combines strikes, since it was meant to be a hand-fighting system for the samurai who had lost their sword. Now the issue is, Japanese Jiu-Jitsu gyms are always smack dojos. They're always like full with children that have black belts and out-of-shape people, like middle-aged fat women getting black belts and doing like hiya, 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 and they're always practicing punches with like open hands or like palm strikes and shit. They're not training with intensity at all, meaning they could have the best fighting style in the world, but they're putting in so little effort that it just doesn't make any sense whatsoever. So I believe you can put the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, it gets to the very top of Kanage, because the techniques are legit, and if a practitioner actually just kind of put some intensity into it by themselves, they're actually gonna get somewhere. I still would not put it into the alright category because I believe that a powerlifter who's just dedicated to training is still going to fuck up most Japanese Jiu-Jitsu practitioners, but it's more applicable than the weapon fighting systems. So yeah, top of kinda gay. It's the best, gayest sport that we have. Next up we have boxing, the oldest and most fundamental striking sport there is, immediately into godlike. Okay, now some of you may ask, especially lots of you Rico Verhoeven and Badr Hari fans are going to ask, why did you put the kickboxing into the good category and put boxing 2 layers above? The answer is actually fairly simple. I mean, for one, both of them don't really consist of any grappling, so we can, they both get the drawback. The advantage that boxing has over kickboxing is that it's a lot more restrictive. In kickboxing, you have kicks and punches, meaning you're gonna have to train both of these right from the start. What that means is that you're going to be intermediate at best at both of these, while the guy who does boxing is going to be amazing at throwing punches. So if you were to give the same time frame to 2 people that are genetically identical, let's say, one guy does boxing for a year and the other guy does kickboxing. The kickboxer is going to be sort of good at throwing punches and kicks together, while the boxer is going to be amazing at throwing punches because he only has a few punches he has to focus on. And on top of that, kicks are not that practical in the streets because you're wearing shoes that don't allow you to like put in as much torque. They don't really allow you to rotate your heels as much. It can be slippery, and the chance of getting grappled when you kick is so much higher than when you strike. And considering that kickboxing does not consist of any grappling, it doesn't really prepare you for that, at least to an extent. Boxing, in my opinion, takes the edge. It's gonna prepare you a lot faster. Next up, we have bare knuckle boxing. So bare knuckle boxing is an interesting one. In theory, on paper, it would be better than boxing because in the streets, you fight with your fists. You don't have 16 OZ gloves battling people outside. That's not gonna happen, right? Nobody's gonna like pack their gloves with them. The problem is, for one, there's no bare knuckle gyms anywhere, as far as I know, like very few of them. And also, how are you supposed to train that, speaking from a longevity point of view? Because you're gonna get punched in the face with bare fists. That's gonna leave so many scars, bruises, and so much brain damage that you're most likely gonna be fucked up by the time you get semi-proficient at fighting. Meaning it's good on paper, but it's just not conducive to longevity. And I believe you'd be better off just doing standard boxing or any other striking art, if I'm being honest with you. Next up, we have Aikido. Aikido kind of has the same problems that Krav Maga has, only slightly less cringe. So Aikido has these like wrist locks and these kind of throws where you like twist the wrist and the guy just like does a forward roll. That shit doesn't work, okay? But the good thing is, lots of Aikido guys don't necessarily claim that it's the best fighting. Like some do. Some claim that it's the best ultimate self-defense system, but lots of others don't. There are some techniques that are actually applicable, but only if you already know how to wrestle or how to do Jiu Jitsu, for instance, right? I mean, Aikido is a grappling sport. It's just a really watered down grappling sport. It is gonna get you... You're gonna learn to fall, I suppose, so I'm gonna put it at the bottom of kinda gay. It's not as cringe as this fucking Krav Maga bullshit, but you know, obviously you just can't compare it to lifting weights or bare knuckle boxing or heck, even boxing, for instance. Next up, we have Shaoling Kung Fu. This one's gonna surprise a lot of you. So, from a stylistic point of view, like talking about a practical martial art, is obviously not the most proficient, and it doesn't claim to be, right? They're stuntmen. They like to show off flashy moves, flashy jumps, and flips and backflips and such. Meaning, if you want to become proficient at fighting, you would be just better off doing any of these things. However, it doesn't necessarily teach you how to fight, but it gets you physically prepared, kind of similar to powerlifting. I still believe that powerlifting is a lot better because it's so much easier to train and you're gonna get better faster. But considering that it's not necessarily a fighting art, but it's gonna get you pretty fit and athletic, I think it's fair to put it into the bottom of the alright category. Like the average Shaolin guy is gonna fuck up the average out of shape McDonald's type of dude that you face on the streets, right? So I think it's fair to say that. Next we have Sumo. This one's gonna be really interesting. I believe Sumo is actually a pretty decent martial art for the streets. I mean, you have to push off really big and strong guys, which is gonna carry over very, very well into the streets. Because you're used to an extent of intensity that most people don't even smell. However, it kind of requires you to be a big guy yourself. If you have a lighter body weight like myself, these guys are just gonna smash you. Because the point of Sumo is just to throw people or push them away. So I believe that we should put Sumo into... I'm gonna put it above bare knuckle boxing because it doesn't carry that inherent risk. And I feel like there's a lot more availability in Sumo. There's like more Sumo gyms than bare knuckle boxing gyms. But obviously it's not the best use of your time, but it can get you somewhere. It's a fair choice in my opinion. Next up we have mixed martial arts, immediate godlike tier. Very simple answer. You learn to strike while having the threat of being kicked, you learn to kick while having the threat of being grappled, and you grapple while having the threat of being striked. Factually speaking, the most holistic fighting system, I believe it doesn't deserve any less than to be in the godlike category. Case closed. Next up we have my favorite martial art, which I'm not gonna give a biased opinion on it whatsoever, but it's gonna immediately go to the top of godlike tier. Wrestling just takes the immediate throne. Okay, now you may ask why, considering that MMA is so much more holistic than wrestling. Look, wrestling kind of has the best of both worlds when it comes to MMA and boxing. It is really specific, meaning you only practice a few things, such as, you know, getting a takedown, pitting the opponent, which means you're gonna get pretty good pretty fast, but at the same time it has the same applicability of MMA, because wrestling techniques work no matter what your opponent does. Whether he does kickboxing, boxing, jiu-jitsu, wrestling techniques always work. That's the reason why wrestling is the best base for fighting, because it's the most natural way of fighting. Bears don't do jiu-jitsu, they don't box, they don't do Muay Thai, they wrestle. And if you're just really good at slamming people onto their head on concrete, you're gonna fuck most people up pretty damn bad. So wrestling immediate S tier takes the crown of the whole martial arts world, no questions asked. Next up we have Wing Chun. Wing Chun has this exact same problem as Aikido, but I feel like the techniques are actually a bit more applicable because you kind of at least cover strikes, and I don't know, I feel like Wing Chun just is less pretentious than Aikido. I've heard that actually some MMA fighters, just Conor McGregor, even use Wing Chun techniques, but that's kind of the case of, well, they do work, but they only work if you already know how to box, if you already know how to wrestle, if you already know Jiu Jitsu, so not the best use of your time, but it's not as cringe as fucking Krav Maga. I fucking hate Krav Maga so much. One of the reasons is that one of my friends got ripped off by a Krav Maga instructor who like demanded like $700 from him, even though he wasn't able to show up for training, and he didn't actually tell him beforehand. He didn't actually tell him what he was signing up for. And then that Brazilian disgrace just demanded so much money from him. So yeah, I kind of have a personal backstory with that martial art. That's what we call it that. It's a bullshit art. Next up we have Tai Chi. Tai Chi kind of, it's not really a martial art, it's more like a relaxation type of thing. Although it's not really gonna get you physically prepared and it's not teaching you how to fight, it is gonna give you a better bodily control, I suppose. So I think we can put that like right next to Japanese Jiu-Jitsu because it kind of carries some general preparedness. So it's gonna benefit you physically somehow. Not necessarily gonna carry you over one-to-one to fighting, but it can still like benefit your life, I guess. Next up we have Sambo. The question with Sambo is not a question of style because stylistically it would go right next to wrestling, right? I'll rank them pretty much on par with each other. It's more of a question of geography. If you live in the Eastern Bloc, Sambo is immediate godlike tier. Like if you learn Sambo, bro, you are a fighter. You're legit. Okay, you're completely legit. The problem is if you live outside the Eastern Bloc, there's not gonna be any Sambo gyms. I mean, in Germany, for instance, where I live, we have two Sambo gyms in the entire country. So how the fuck am I supposed to train it hard, right? But I believe, considering that the Eastern Bloc is still a pretty gigantic part of the world and that Sambo gained so much popularity through all the UFC fighters, it's fair to put it into the godlike category since it's practically MMA just with a gi on. Next up we have Sanda, which is actually quite exotic. It's essentially just Muay Thai combined with wrestling, which is really fantastic on paper. The only issue is, outside of China, there's not really going to be any Sanda gyms. There's like some in Iran or some in Turkey or fuck knows where stand, but generally speaking, you're not really gonna find lots of Sanda gyms or serious Sanda practitioners. Stylistically, it's actually really good. It's basically MMA without grappling, right? It teaches you to take people down without going to the ground yourself. Like you have to remain standing in order for the takedown to count. I believe Sanda, this one's gonna be a bit tough. I'm gonna put it right above catch wrestling because I feel like there's more Sanda gyms than catch wrestling gyms because I can't find a Sanda gym that's kind of nearby where I live. Like I've checked it, but I can't find catch wrestling, so Sanda just takes the edge. Next up we have Judo. Judo has the same problems as Jiu Jitsu, but in reverse. It has lots of intensity. Judo is one of the hardest sports. It might arguably be harder than wrestling. I've tried both, right? I'm a freestyle wrestler, but Judo is so much tougher. You're constantly gripping and ripping. There's no way to disconnect from the opponent. The techniques are legit, but it's super restrictive. You can't grip that way. You can't apply this grip. You can only grip that. You can only hold on for 3 seconds. They kind of watered it down a bit too much to be a proficient fighting system, but I still believe that a serious judo practitioner is gonna fuck you up pretty bad if you're untrained. I'm gonna rank it right below jiu-jitsu because I believe jiu-jitsu is still gonna be the better use of your time considering how much more versatile it is. But if you're doing judo and you're putting in effort, you're gonna be just as dangerous, especially on the streets. Next up we have Capoeira. Capoeira is essentially just worse kickboxing. I mean, it's like a dance where you also do kickboxing techniques. It's kind of cool to watch it, I suppose, and it's gonna get you generally physically prepared, but I don't know. I'm gonna put it at the bottom of the alright category. It's gonna get you somewhere, but why not just do kickboxing if you're doing freaking Capoeira? Next up we have Muay Thai, which is actually fucking amazing. Muay Thai is just kickboxing, but better in every aspect. I mean, for one, it looks cooler. It has a cooler sounding name. The people make cool chants when they kick people, like, oh, wee! It also features grappling, right? It features some throws, some clinch game. It features elbows, so you're gonna be a lot more holistically developed. But at the same time, if you're facing a guy who knows how to wrestle, you are pretty much done for because the upright stance of Muay Thai kind of really just calls in for takedowns. And of course, it's not as specific as boxing, so it takes a bit more time to get good. It has a higher ceiling of acquirable skills, meaning if you put two guys 10 years into each of these arts, the Muay Thai guy is most likely going to fuck up the boxer, but getting good in a short amount of time is going to be a lot easier in boxing than in Muay Thai. which makes sense, I hope. But nevertheless, Muay Thai is one of the best choices you can make, and there's lots of gyms available anywhere, and the culture in Muay Thai is pretty tough. They're one of the toughest martial artists out there. And next up we have Lethwei. What bare knuckle boxing is to boxing, Lethwei kind of is to Muay Thai. It is essentially just Muay Thai, but a lot rougher, and there's not really that many gyms outside of Thailand. Stylistically, there's nothing wrong with it, but training such a brutal martial art is gonna take quite a toll on your body, so considering that there's just no gyms anywhere on top, I'm gonna rank it right above bare knuckle boxing. So yeah, that's pretty much the tier list. If you want to start a martial art with self-defense in mind, I recommend you try any of these in the godlike or amazing category because they're pretty widespread besides Sambo. And if you do any of these for a proficient amount of time, at least for a year with proper intent, you're gonna be a pretty dangerous guy to face in the streets, and you're gonna be ready to just demolish some people. However, do not chase street fights, they're stupid as fuck, but it's better to be a warrior in a garden than to be a gardener in a war. Thank you for watching, have a nice day. Now go out to your local gyms and smash the people in a respectful manner, of course. Have a good one.